I came here to speak without fear or favor, to be honest, on a very neutral platform. I'm not entirely happy with the administration because of so many things. We're here to discuss the gains, the gaps, and the way forward. For me, the mantra has changed, but the powers haven't. Systems, structures have been changed. Subsidies have been removed without systems. The naira has been floated without a parachute. The economy is rising, about 3.8% increase in GDP. Yes, but like Mr. Ayodele said, an increase that does not reflect in the growth of the people and the well-being of the people.
Yes, this is one of the best analysis I've seen on the internet. Slogans are not solution. A great analyst, I'll call him great because he just sent a direct message to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu concerning his renewed hope. Please watch, share, drop your thoughts in the comment section.
There's a lot to do, and in my opinion, again, for Mr. President, hope is not a policy, and slogans are not solutions. So the renewed hope agenda has a lot to consolidate for. The renewed hope agenda has a lot to catch up with. There's too much politicking going on and about instead of administration. There's too much politicking going on and about instead of focusing on the real issues at hand. Policies are being made. What's going on at the national level is elite-centered policies that are favorable to only the elites but not the masses. And then you have an average Nigerian citizen that is being constantly told to endure, to adopt, and to survive. So in my opinion, these things do not translate to the reality on paper. We need to stop applauding numbers and start focusing on the reality on ground. So for President Muhammadu Buhari to come out and say thumbs up to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, fair enough. I think constant encouragement is needed. I have a completely different standpoint. Constant encouragement, constant guidance. We do not need the anti. We need unity, we need constant encouragement, and we need constant insights and guidances. So I totally agree with President Muhammadu Buhari. Constant criticisms, negative criticisms do not serve justice, do not do anybody any harm, any good, rather more harm. So, but there's a lot to consolidate for.
All right, let's switch gears now. We have joining us via Zoom Senior Special Assistant on Digital New Media to the President, Otega Ogra. He'll be joining us any moment. But you know what? Let's take some excerpts. Let's take you back 2 years ago and just listen to President Bola Tinubu speaking on his inauguration day. Let's listen to some of the things he said, and we'll break this down further. Take a listen.
You honored to assume the sacred mandate you have given me. My love for this nation is abiding. My confidence in its people unwavering, and my faith in God Almighty is absolute. His hand can provide the needed moral strength and clarity of in those instances where even seem have reached the limit of human capacity. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, is bold and majestic, yet bright.
And that's the part where he said the day is bold and majestic. Well, Bukola, I know naturally you want to come in on this one.
Well, it's important for us to remind ourselves of, the promises made by the administration, any government in the first place. But one thing appears to be the common thread in what our guests have said so far, and that is the need for us to relax on criticism. And you talked about the gains, trickling in, and it elicits an important question. You noted that the former administration had run the economy aground. So in a sense, do you see, when you consider those indicators, some would say the reforms of this administration are bold: removal of subsidy, the floating of the naira, that the naira has actually found its true value. And last year, Nigeria recorded a drop in debt service to revenue ratio, which was significant over a period of time, although more loans have been secured now, and that is heading us further downhill. But do you sense that because of those little gains that haven't trickled down, that this particular administration of the APC government appear to be better managers of the economy, Mr. Adio?
Well, that's a difficult box to put me on. Because first of all, to be honest, we talk about the fact that they were bold to take on the removal of petrol subsidy and, of course, the floating of the currency. But the reality is that when they took office, they found themselves in a close, and there was hardly any other place to turn to. So the decisions that they had, or the decisions that they were confronted with, they had very few options. They just had to cut off petrol subsidy. Otherwise, the economy would have completely tanked, right? So they didn't have a flurry of options to take at the time. It was just what was on the table, and they just had to do what they had to do. And I concede that if you have to conduct the orchestra, you have to back the audience, right? But to your larger question, which is how has this gains, or how will these gains trickle down going forward? The truth is, on the one hand, they are playing the trickle-down economics, and we have seen historically that the trickle-down economics doesn't really work in the long run. It hardly ever trickles down to the bottom of the pyramid, and that's why you have to pursue it simultaneously, with social policies that are able to reach the vulnerable citizens across the country and help carry those who are being left behind, because they also play a significant role. And in Nigeria's case, they form a majority in our economy, right? And like I emphasized earlier, the growth that you're seeing, largely driven by ICT and financial services, are restricted to a tiny cluster of people who have high liquidity. And so if you're very liquid today, you can easily invest in treasury bonds, treasury bills, and bonds, and easily make 20 to 30% markups, right? So it's people who are extremely liquid that are able to make significant gains from the economy. And like I said, if you can put a couple of monies in TBs and make 20 to 30%, why are you going to start a business where you're going to deal with high electricity cost, high labor cost, poor infrastructure? You're not going to do that. And so that's why you see that the economy is not creating as much jobs as it should. And that's why I'd like to see a more pragmatic approach that is targeted at major sectors of the economy that powers job creation, which is in manufacturing, which is in agriculture, which is in processing. That way, growth can be a lot more inclusive. We can create more jobs for the economy. We can drive consumption better. And we can see relative progress over time. At the moment, I think we're running the risk of using data to some extent, like a drunk person uses a lamppost, which is to support himself and not for illumination. And so the data that the current administration continues to harp upon is the fact that the economy has grown at 3.7%. But yes, it's true. But the reality on the streets does not reflect the growth that they are touting.
So in that sense, they're not necessarily better managers of the economy. They do not understand.
To be fair, if you compare them to what we saw in the last 8 years, it's a quantum leap to where we were, because this is the first time the economy has grown significantly in the last 10 years. So if you compare them to what was obtainable in the Buhari administration, yes, you can argue that they're far better managers of the economy. They have, to my opinion, a more competent CBN governor who is focused on his primary objective of price stability.